Sue, welcome to Living Off Rentals.
Thank you for having me, Kirby. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. Sue and I go way back, and I always tell people in the world of real estate investing, you meet people and your reputation really sticks with you over time because you tend to run into the same circles of people over time. It's a small community, and Sue and I met each other years ago and just happened to recently be at the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference together, which was, we were just talking before this, it was an awesome conference put on by Dustin Heiner a few weeks ago. And we were catching up at the conference, and we realized that we're working on some very similar projects right now and similar interests, and some interests that I thought would really communicate or really interest this community specifically, especially around the glam site that you're developing. And so I wanted to jump into that, but before I do, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background. And I think that leads a little bit into how we actually met for the first time.
Oh, sure. Happy to, Kirby. I actually started fixing and flipping back in the late 90s before it was something. It was even a thing before there were, meetup groups and people supporting one another in this. Turned out that it was a gentleman that lived a few blocks away from us at the time. And he was an older gentleman and just wasn't able to keep up his home. And he had passed away, and the mortgage company put it on the market. And so this is really how things have changed in just, that 25 years. That was back at a time when mortgage companies did not want these old abandoned homes, and they were selling them for pennies on the dollars just to get them off their inventory.
Yeah.
Those were the days that it was actually very lucrative to find properties like that. And because nobody really knew, it wasn't wildly known that they were very profitable to do. That's how I started. We just had our second daughter, and I didn't want to go back to corporate America. So I found a way to fix the house up after fed the family dinner, very traditional role at that time I was playing, and went to work on the house at night. And it was a lot of fun. And subsequently, it was percentage-wise the single most successful project. We've been money hand over fist on that one.
That's incredible.
It was. I think that just kind of got me really loving it. And I have always had a passion for construction, and it's only developed and grown to now I have great people working for me. I have a fairly large construction crew, and I do custom homes. So that's over the last 25 years, that's where I've taken it.
Wow. So how did it grow from that first one? I'm curious. The first one obviously was a big success. And then you started picking up more fix and flips. When did it kind of transition into starting your own construction company?
It transitioned probably about 8 years later. There was a family restructuring. So I needed to make sure that I was providing for at that time. Then we have, I have 3 daughters then and now, but when I first started out, there was still only 2. And so I started working construction, and by then I had met some local real estate investors, and we had, done work. And for whatever reason, I kind of became known as, the one who could read the market, identify what the local market was, what finishes needed to be done to achieve that top dollar without spending too much or breaking the bank. And so I became quite an asset. And just started, and I think also, let's be honest, being a woman in construction, it was a little bit, one of the benefits of being a woman in construction is I'm known a little bit more in the investment arena. They're like, oh yeah, you're the lady, you're the woman investor. Yeah, okay, you own your own construction company. So that's one of the huge benefits of being a woman in the trade. People notice you.
Yeah. And that's a good way to look at it, because I was going to ask you about that. If it's been a challenge, or if you feel like, you haven't, got the respect or something like that, being a woman in more of a male dominated industry.
I can say there have definitely been times that things were blatantly done that were sexist, or just didn't want to work with a woman, didn't feel I was qualified enough. But I like to think that there's far more benefits to being a woman in the trades. I as a builder, so far as a builder goes, I build from a very creative standpoint, where many builders that are men, my counterparts, and without any disrespect, because there's amazing builders out there, they build more from a box and what fits, how we can fit it in the room. And I meet every customer and every client with the approach of, how do you want to feel when you go home? What do we want to achieve at this? And 5 years from now, what do you think your life is going to look like here? What do we need to make, how do we need to accommodate those things? So I think it's a benefit. I've always thought it was a benefit. Yeah. It's really great benefit with inspectors.
Yeah.
I've seen inspectors rip men apart. They have never done it to me.
That's
awesome. It's just always, what can I do? I'm trying to, I want to do this right. If we did something wrong, can you help me understand what it is? And not being rude, but most good men want to help a woman out, and it's great that way. So
yeah,
I consider there's a lot of benefits.
Well, it's a testament to, you can look at any situation through two separate lenses, and you can say, oh, I couldn't do it in that industry because it's all men. Or you could say, because it's, majority men, I get to stand out, and here's the benefits, and I'm going to, recognize those, utilize those to my benefit. And that is awesome. That's great. And a good lesson for other, young ladies who are listening to this that might be interested in construction.
Right. And there's always something, people, whether you're a man or a woman, the skills needed to run a successful company are the same. And I watch a lot of men that I know, because I have a lot of subcontractors and companies that work for me and are with me, and they have the same struggles that I do. So at that level, there's not a huge difference.
Yeah.
We're all in this together, and we all kind of, celebrate our wins and, sometimes cry on each other's shoulders.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's funny because, so I wanted to share how we met. My dad and I actually, so we've worked together for a long time in our real estate investing business. And we were mostly doing flips back then. This was probably, I think 2013 or so, maybe 2014, when we first met. And we were up in Barrington, and we walked into a house that was, you were holding an open house, I believe, at the time, or we had just got the access code from the realtor, and we were touring the house because we saw it was another flip similar to the one that we were planning to do. We walked in, and you were there, and we didn't know you were the owner at first, and then we started talking, and you were just very friendly, and you have that attitude that you just mentioned, that we're kind of all in this together and helping each other out. And so we formed a relationship and kind of stayed connected on different projects over the years. But I thought that was awesome when I first met you, that you took that approach, because some people would say, oh, this is competition, I'm not going to tell them anything, or kind of be a jerk. And that was not the case.
The more everybody grows, the more we all grow. It's just, it's a fabulous thing. It's not, it's not about, hoarding is not necessarily my thing. Yeah. That's how I feel too.
So let's fast forward then to what you're doing now. So you still have the construction company. And then also you're working on this new development. So can you kind of talk through how you balance life now and what that looks like for you?
Well, Kirby, I'm going to say that balancing life right now might be a very nice way to say it. I'm kind of hanging on right now because I'm in the transition. In 3 weeks, I'm moving to Tennessee. So I still have a couple of really great customers working on some things with, and a couple of other projects that I will now have a crew in Chicago, and making sure that my new project manager is acclimated and everybody that needs to be in place is in place. So, and getting ready to close on a fairly large project, not myself personally, but working for a group that we're closing on a large project in Tennessee, just about 45 minutes outside of Gatlinburg. And what we're going to be doing is building about 31 homes. We're going to include a clubhouse, swimming pool, all kinds of fun things. The people that will be buying it, which are people that are investing in short-term and mid-term rentals. It's one of the hottest markets in the nation. They will also have an opportunity to put in a tree house, because I've convinced the county that we need to accept tree houses as a not HUD, a separate. Oh my goodness!
The accessory dwelling unit.
There we go, an ADU. Yeah. I wanted to keep saying HUD, but I'm like, no, it's not a HUD. So it'll be considered an ADU, and we're going to make those livable and conditioned space. And that's the transition that I'm making on that one. So I'll be overseeing all of that, but then still coming back, commuting to Chicago at least once a month.
Wow. That is awesome. So how'd you pick Tennessee, being in the suburbs of Chicago? How do you just decide that you're going to buy a project like this in Tennessee?
About 10 years ago, 12 years ago, my daughters and myself, I just randomly, the Gatlinburg area was relatively close. I had been there once or twice before, knew it was beautiful. And we found a little spot, which is so interesting. It's about 7 miles from the project of Moody Moon Ridge. And it's a great place called Cobley Knob. Give credit where credit is due. And we just got a little cabin there and stayed there. And there was something special about the place. I really can't put my finger on it. I knew that it was incredible to me. Everything, I felt so comfortable there. I'm in awe there. I'm still in awe every time I go there. To me, it's the most beautiful place in this country. I love it. And so we looked for a property for almost a year and a half, found a great one that happens to be only 7 miles from Cobley Knob, right in the Smoky Mountains. So it's about 120-acre parcel of land.
I hear that over and over again about the area, that people have that same experience. My brother went down there and said the same thing, and obviously it must, because there's a lot of people kind of flocking to that area doing short-term rentals, and a lot of people visiting the Smoky Mountains. So it must have a draw. So obviously there's the draw for the area as a whole that you visited there, and you just knew that there was something special here. But then how do you decide on the specific land? What were the parameters that you were looking at that you knew would lead to a successful project like this?
This is a larger project. So ahead of time, if you're considering doing something larger, do a mock-up. So there were a couple of pieces of land that I was able to find on Zillow, looked at them, the dynamics of it. And if there was too much of a mountainous ridge where it was undevelopable, or all woods, all wooded area, or all flat land, each one of those posed unique restrictions. And so I knew from looking at it and looking at the numbers and what I could build and how I could build it. And I think more importantly, trying to create an environment at Moody Moon Ridge that's really unique, and providing a connection between the people that are visiting there and the area in itself. So there's a lot of factors that I'm doing, doing things that are a lot more earth friendly, and I want people to be able to connect with one another, because I do believe COVID has kind of fractured our connection, and we really need to get back to that. Putting fire pits in, putting walking trails in, a little clubhouse, offering sunrise yoga. There's a lot of things that I wanted to do. And when I was looking at land, I realized I needed all three elements. I needed rolling hills with some woods to put some houses in. The whole project needed to have mountain views, and I needed some flat land. Obviously, you can't put a pool on the side of a mountain. It won't stay filled. And a couple of other things like that. And I also wanted part of it to have a nice high ridge, so we can get some magnificent homes up there that have overlying views of the entire Smoky Mountains. And so after a year and a half, found that parcel of land.
Wow.
And all along, looking for competition. What is healthy competition? What are they getting every night in Airbnbs? And what's the rental market like? When's our downtime? When's our, of course, we know probably what the peak season is, but the Smoky Mountains also has 2 peak seasons, Fall is another great one because of the leaves changing, and the month of December is fabulous down there. Not to mention, spring through summer. So then you just start analyzing numbers. What do we need to, what can we build it for, and what can we sell it for, and how does that look on the bottom line?
Wow. And so when you're thinking about developing, you said it's 120 acres?
Yes.
Okay. How do you decide on the layout of it? Did you bring in a engineer who looked at the land first and they said, okay, you could build houses here? Or it seems like there's several steps in there that kind of feel like chicken and the egg to me. Like what goes first? You kind of need to know some things to make other moves. And so what did that look like at that point?
This is a little bit more of a unique property. So the county right next to Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and Sevierville they're in Sevier County. The neighboring county is Cock County, which is where this development is at. And I specifically was searching for land only in Cock County, close to the Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, Sevierville area.
Okay.
And the reason I did that is because Sevier County has put some very strong building restrictions. So has Knox County, which is to the northwest, which is Knoxville. So Cobb County, Tennessee, believe it or not, does not have building restrictions when it comes to residential building. With the one exception, it has to be more than 5-acre parcel.
Okay.
And so having said that, I was not required to develop and put a PUD together and so on and so forth. And it is a little bit more laid back and it's a little bit more relaxed. So surveyor has been out there surveying the land, created a great topographical survey, which tells you the elevations of the land itself. And especially in the mountains, that's very, very important because there's a lot of the area that's not developable because it goes up too high and too low. And then you stand out there with my road builder. His name's Tommy Croward, great guy. And all of us stand there and we kind of decide, okay, this is where we're going to start. This is how we're going to start. This is what, first and foremost, what we need to get into place. And we're developing it like 5 to 7 lots at a time because I don't want to, I want to be able to build a road. We have to have a little bit of flexibility to it. And there's large granite and limestone, boulders, or they call them veins down there, cascading through the mountains. And I don't want to dynamite. I want to just build around those. So we have to have a little bit of flexibility, but everybody's going to have a little bit over a 5-acre parcel. So it's a different way than I've ever built before. But everybody's like, well, this is how we do it here in the mountains. And I at a certain point, and my construction manager Josh is like, well, okay, I guess that's how we're doing it.
Wow.
And we just walk the land a lot and figure out, okay, house can go here, house can go here, house can go there. And
wow, that's cool.
kind of how we're doing it.
Yeah. So you're saying so on that 120, you can divide it up into 5-acre parcels. And as long as you have 5 acres, then you can build an individual house on. Okay. Right. Got it.
And the land itself came with it came with 6 subdivided lots were already on the land that they had gotten permission almost 10 years ago from the county. And those are smaller lots. They're like 1.5 to 3 acre lots, actually 1.5 to 2 acre lots. So we were able to that was a great start. We can start on that, but we can start on those right away. So we do have a starting point.
Yeah.
We have a starting point.
And each one has to have its own, it's treated as an actual house then where it has its own septic and well and all that. There's not a shared utilities.
Some of the homes in a couple of the areas, what we'll do is we'll place them maybe just a couple of 100 feet away, okay, and divided by some really nice wooded areas so they won't be able to necessarily see each other. But from an economic standpoint, we're putting in some areas where we can, we'll put in larger wells that have 6-inch pipes going into the ground so they could service 3 homes. Nice. So where we can do that is one of the cost saving factors we're going to use. But everybody does have to have their own septic that is required by the county.
Got it. Okay. And yeah, we're my wife and I live on 45 acres here in Valparaiso. And we are, doing I guess, somewhat similar type of development. Ours is a little bit more glamping side, less actual homes. And one of the things that we've run into is figuring out the utilities, like that's a big, like getting the roads back there, getting the electrical back there, the gas. We do have gas service here to the street. I assume you probably won't have natural gas service out there, but
No, we don't.
yeah. So how do you work that into your numbers? Because that's kind of, again, like something that has to be there in order for people to build houses, but yet it's a big upfront cost.
Well, what we're doing is, so on the actual survey itself, we've sat down with the, critical people, as well as my electrician and the utility company, electric company. Gas right now, I've made the decision for a couple of reasons, but ecologically, the only gas option would be propane. And we can easily avoid that by going with electric. And because the climate is a little bit more, pleasant than it is in the Chicago area, we can use heat pumps instead of full furnaces. And so propane just burns really, it's a hard burn, and it's not the best for the environment. So we're staying with electric on that one, and using solar panels where we can in the open fields to help boost up our electric output. But so what we do is you sit down with the people at hand. We're kind of sketching it, kind of saying, okay, here's where a lot is, here's where a lot. This looks like this is going to be a house. This looks like, and when I say looks like, it's going to be within 100 feet or so, as long as we can get through the terrain and put it in there. Then we can, with a pencil, we look at it, we know. And right now it's, $13 a linear foot to run electricity to homes, and we just calculate that out.
I see.
And we just go along the way. I mean, it's just step by step. It's not, it seems overwhelming, and many parts of construction are, but just start with the first step. When you're done with the first step, you'll know what the second step is, and the third step. It's just kind of, it's not, yes, I've kind of have done all of the pieces together, but we'll figure it out. I promise, you won't, if people are worried about what they can and cannot do, you're not going to forget to put a well and a septic in. It's not.
Yeah.
Somebody will remind you along the way you need to do one of those.
Yeah. And I think the one thing that you pointed out that I think is really helpful is picking a county that's easy to work with. You're fighting so many less battles or uphill battles, I guess, right from the start. For us, the way we looked at it initially, because I think the big question mark, it seems like, is like, what am I going to be allowed to do? And so it's like, you can't find out all the answers to everything before purchasing the property. In a lot of cases, you try to find out as much as you can, but then at some point you have to pull the trigger on the property, and then still there's probably pending approvals and stuff. And so for us, we were like, we're going to live here ourselves. So worst case scenario, we can't do anything. And, it's a cost that we could afford, but it's not something we would want to do. But on the best case scenario, it's very dense, and you have, you have your dream scenario set up. And so there's probably somewhere in the middle that the county's going to approve. But I think, like you said, starting with a easier county to work with, then there's not going to be a worst case scenario where they deny everything. The minimum that you can develop, and I think that's a smart way to approach it.
It is, and that's how we're approaching this. There's also really it's something that most people, especially most builders and developers, aren't comfortable with, because all of a sudden now you have to trust yourself, and so the county doesn't even issue building permits. They don't have a building inspector. Wow. They're not going to tell me where I put my road. They're not going to tell me any of that.
Interesting.
And it's so at a certain point, you just have to say, okay, I'm working with really great people, relying on a lot of great guys that have worked on that land in that area, for 30, 40, 50 years, and trusting that they know how to get that road in there. And, my builders, we know how to build. Everything's to code, whether or not we're going to have an inspection or not. But that is the hard part, is kind of going, other than the survey showing the breakdown of the lot that has to be recorded, that's not even asking the county for permission. The only permit we will have to obtain is a septic permit, and that's
Wow.
just that as long as we have a perk test that's satisfactory.
I see.
So
Okay.
that's oh, when I say
Interesting.
easy to work with,
Yeah.
it's almost like, okay, how do we do this? And it really took me a little while to wrap my head around. Okay, I don't need permission to do this, and we're going to have fun doing it, and trust that everybody on board is great at what they do. And I've vetted people pretty hard. I'm not real easy on finding the right people. They kind of have to prove themselves to me.
Yeah. 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 Talk about a polar opposite of some of the north suburbs of Chicago. Yeah.
I waited last year on a project that I was doing a year and a half ago, 11 months for permits for an addition in the city of Chicago.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
So that's
I've
why
been in
this
that boat.
project, it's a lot easier too, because we aren't waiting for permits. So it made the financials a little bit more stable.
Okay.
Because we weren't going to have these very lengthy construction delays before we can start. Tommy knows when I'm closing. He's going to be there, within a week and a half, and start popping in some roads and doing some land clearing. And, my well and septic guy is going to be right behind him.
That's awesome. Wow. Very cool. So speaking of financials then, so how do you run the numbers on a project like this? And how do you recommend, if other people are interested in doing a project like this, where do you, I guess, what are your numbers? How do you start that process?
I started with, it's overwhelming because I have a couple of spreadsheets that are pretty dynamic. But my P&L on this one, you just start off with, okay, here's the cost of the land. Because I'm very heavy into construction, I knew what my numbers were going to be to build this. Well, given COVID, I knew what they are for a short period of time. They're moving a little bit, and put a nice generous allowance in there. So then I started with, okay, this is how much it's going to cost for this. And then you just start going down the line. I have a complete construction budget you start off with a lot of your soft costs, marketing, attorney fees, insurance, taxes, and so forth. Then go down to what I consider the soft general costs for the project. And that would be simple things, equipment rental. You're going to need a lot of equipment for this. Going to need porta potties. We're going to need temporary power. We're going to need generators. We're going to need a water supply if in fact we can't get a well up and running right away, which that's not the case anymore. So those are things that we will need. We will need so when you're working on a big project like this, there's two different terms used on these types of projects. And one is your vertical costs and your horizontal costs. Your horizontal costs are the ones that go straight across. That's everything that goes in, your electric, your roads, your well and septic, and everything that is vertical is everything that comes up off the ground. That's actually the structure of your buildings. So you kind of break it down into those two things. Then I already knew the cost of the 3 different models that we were going to, prepare. I've got some pavilions in there. In my, my horizontal costs, I had, fire pits and so on. And you'll just go through the numbers, ask for help. Some of them are going to be staged, so we need furniture. There's a few numbers.
Yeah,
numbers in there. I call a company that I do a lot of my large equipment rental from that's nationwide, and I have got a rep. He'll give me pricing on all of that. Call the dumpster company and say, this is what I'm building. These are how many dumpsters I'll need. They give me a price on it.
Got it. Yeah, and so does the bank provide funding up front, a certain amount to get started, and then they release draws as you complete more and more projects, or that's how it works?
So it's a 20% equity raise, 25% capital equity raise. So we've got to come, that much cash is coming into the project, which the bank wants to see. And working with a lender right now we're structuring it a little bit more like a line of credit. And from a development standpoint, everybody that's buying, so 25 of the homes will be sold.
Your friend in the background there.
Sorry. I'm so sorry.
That's all right. My son was just in here a few minutes ago grabbing my leg, so I feel the pain. Yeah.
So sorry about that. So when you figure, and I just completely lost my train of thought, Kirby. I'm so sorry.
You said you're going to structure it as
we're trying to do more of a line of credit. And the reason is, so 25 of the 30 homes that we're building are going to be sold. And each one of those people will be responsible for their own financial structure, whether it's a loan or they're paying cash, however they work it. So there's going to be a fair amount of there's profit at the sale of each of the homes. And a lot of that's coming back in to fund some of the project as well. So working with somebody that's very interested in doing a line of credit. And if not, we'll do just a straight loan. And as the project progresses, once a month, which is standard of the industry, you go to the bank, you go to the lender, and give them various different financial statements saying X, Y, and Z is done and is completed, and this is how much money we're expecting. Usually they'll send somebody out from the title company to make sure that it's done. And in Illinois, once that's done, you'll wait another week. They'll transfer the funds out. Many areas outside of Illinois are quite easier, even Wisconsin, Milwaukee, places like that, some places in Indiana. The title company shows up, they approve the work, they issue the check right there.
Wow.
So every place is a little bit different, but yes, they have to approve the work for everybody's concern. It's a bad thing to get backwards at a construction loan. You don't want to do that.
Yeah. So with the other 5, you said that you're building 30, 25 will be sold. With the other 5, what are you planning to do with those?
Keep those as a short-term and mid-term rentals.
Nice.
And I'm really, the market is tremendous for that. It also provides a second layer of a long-term income for the health of the project. So I think that's a really great opportunity. If for some reason the houses sell, more than we are anticipating, and my numbers are ultra conservative, maybe we would only go with 4 houses, 3 houses.
Yeah. Okay. So each of the 30 then can have a treehouse ADU in the back?
Yes, it can.
That's amazing.
Yes, it can.
Wow.
And if you want, they can put an RV pad on there as well, as long as RVs are not in the same position for 30 days.
Okay.
You can't. We can't make an RV park here. That's what we can't do that.
Okay. Yeah. That's cool though. I mean, for people who are interested in rental income, getting into something like this, you've got the house obviously that you could use when you're not there. You can rent that out. You can rent out the tree house separately, which some tree houses rent for more than actual houses. It's amazing. And then having an RV park that you could rent RVs on the pad or take it with you. I mean, there's a lot of options there for income generation in addition to having a brand new house in the Smoky Mountains too. So what's the price? I'm sorry.
Oh, that's great. The tree houses are, you well know this. I mean, tree houses, their return is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Compared to the cost of the construction cost is more per square foot because the build is harder. And you're making these where they have heat and and air conditioning and water in them, and so it is a little bit more unique. It's a more difficult build, and you would have to make modifications every 3 years because you're tacking it onto trees that move and grow and live. Yeah, but it's a fabulous project. The homes are going to be starting the 2,600 square foot homes, which is a 3-bedroom, 2.5 bath with loft, deck, hot tub, and so on, are going to be starting right around. I have to actually have a call with the marketing company on Thursday, but I'm thinking right around 800,000, and that's with mountain views.
Okay. Nice.
Might be a little bit more. So you can't quote me on that price yet. I'm letting the marketing people do their thing.
Does that come with the treehouse or not?
That does not.
Okay.
That does not. I'm sorry. The tree houses themselves are about 208, depending on what amenities you want in it, are about 280 to 350 per tree house, and that's just like an open studio type of 900 square feet.
Wow. Does that's like an actual house? I mean, that is utilities to it?
Oh, yes. You'll have a work. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. You'll have a
I was thinking more of like a childhood treehouse where it's just more of like a box where you can sleep. So
we can accommodate that too, Kirby, if you want.
That sounds pretty nice. And you have bathroom in there and everything?
Yes.
Wow.
We do. We'll have a bathroom. The bathroom itself will be down on the ground, I believe, but we will have a kitchenette that's up in the facility. So you might have They're really fun, going to be really fun to build. So the main building might be here, but then you might have like a little walking platform for 10 feet taking you to the bathroom. That might be how that, works, because we have to work with what Mother Nature gives us. That one's truly kind of without a plan. You kind of look at the trees around you and build from what you actually have.
That's fun.
Total custom.
Yeah. That is fun to build, and it's cool to visit too. That's why they rent for so much, because it's such a unique experience.
Oh, it is.
Very cool. So what's, I guess, for somebody, you've been doing construction, you've been doing real estate for a while. What's your best piece of advice for someone who's thinking about getting into real estate investing or development? They're new to it, but they're thinking about getting into it.
Take the first step. There's no way to know in this industry what every project is or isn't going to bring, and just be confident in yourself that you have the ability to figure out every problem that's going to come your way, and there's going to be a lot of them. And I don't want to say problem, I say learning experiences. That's how you learn. And that's it. Just okay, I'll quote Nike, just do it.
Yeah, exactly. There's not all of them are going to go your way, but I like to always look too at that. What's the best case scenario? What's the worst case scenario? And if you can live with the worst case scenario, then it's not going to be ideal, but you're going to recover from it. You'll be fine. So, you're going to have a lot more regrets not doing it in most cases. So that's great.
Right. I mean, as you said, I know it firsthand. Not everything has gone the way I had projected. There have been a couple of projects that flopped. Mm-hmm. But you just get up, brush yourself off, and figure out what you can learn from it, and don't make that mistake again.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's great. I really appreciate the insight here. This is a really fascinating project. If somebody wants to reach out to you and get more information about, the houses, or just, in general information on, you did an awesome talk, by the way, at the Real Estate Wealth Builders Conference on, how to develop land. There's so many considerations. So if somebody wants to chat with you about that, what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Email. So you can email me at sue@augustlimited.com. That's both words are spelled out, or give me a call at 847-630-4566.
Awesome. Well, thank you again. I know the community is really going to get a lot out of this one, and we'll be in touch very soon.
Thank you, Kirby. Thank you so much. You have a great day. It was such a pleasure to be here with you today.
You too. Take care.
Thanks.